Have you eaten danggit for breakfast recently? Have you ever wondered where they come from? Unequal yet fair. Sharing fish in Dewey Island. The case of the fish sharing in Dewey Island in Bolinao, Pangasinan, seen during fieldwork in 1993 to 1996, demonstrate that what we consider fair is shaped by circumstances and complex interactions with others. The annual practice of leasing fishing lots by municipal government to raise revenue existed decades before documenting the Barangen Concession system. Marginal fishers gained temporary rights where spawning of Barangen, Siganus fuscescens or rabbit fish, occurred every summer from February to April or May. The Barangen, familiarly known as Denggit, consistently swim in schools in a northeast direction towards their spawning grounds. The fish runs last 3 or 4 nights after the Lined, new moon, when pasabing, fish corrals, were set up to catch spawning fish. This event was regarded as a jackpot akin to the harvest season of farmers. The earnings from the spawning seasons easily paid for the concession fee, plus they derive better income compared to Barangen off-season fishing. About 150 people performing various roles were involved in the concession system fish. The postor or concessionaire who signed the lease contract with the municipal office managed the operation and coordinated the whole consortia of participants referred to by the roles they performed. Sharing was evident in how the catch was distributed, among other complex unwritten sharing mechanisms observed. Recorded and unrecorded catch. The proportion of unrecorded catch told of the value given to sharing, based on the postor or concessionaire's fish catch records, conversations with fish workers, submitted lists for the postor, and observations spending nights with fishers on the pasabing on different occasions. Fish catches were undeclared by as much as 20 to 30%. From a business perspective, fish taken from the inventory may be construed as bad for business. However, unlike the idea of pilferages or systems lost in corporations considered as stealing, the redistribution of fish was socially acceptable, as long as recipients were part of the social network, that they took less than a can of commercially valuable fish, and that either the pastor or the guards gave approval. So, where did the unrecorded fish go? These went to bodyguards of an investor barangay captain, to fish buyers or traders who negotiated for extra fish aside from what they brought, to pasabing fishers who squirreled away fish aside from their agreed share, and to others whom the pastor instructed to give fish. The recorded catch also excluded fish broiled for meals by fish workers, fish given to relatives and friends from the village who showed up to kadya-kadya or ask for fish, and fish brought home by the workers. Spreading goodwill by sharing fish. The unwritten understanding was that the pasabing fishers, bantay, fish traders could cook fish for their meals while working at the pasabing. They were permitted to bring home some more for their families. Even those uninvolved in the production process could ask a kilo or two of fish. Sharing fish increased when there was a bountiful harvest. Once the yield exceeded the previous year's catch, the bantay stopped listing the catch for the pastor. Such leniency stems from a belief that natural resources are God given for all to benefit. It was their rationale for generosity or expecting a share from a free resource. Sharing is default behavior and a realistic group survival strategy in a subsistence economy in a context where only temporary prerogatives to the fishery may be possessed. Take the pastor, who is regarded as an informal leader granted exclusive control over the concession. He may have had priority access to fish, was entitled to over half of fish caught by pasabing operators, and could arbitrarily impose rules. However, being pastor is rotationally and collectively agreed upon among the local elite from different villages surrounding the fishery lot prior to the public auctions. In addition, generosity and fish sharing was mandatory for recognition of leadership. Otherwise, the pastor would not have the manpower support and cooperation of the villagers to perform the different roles necessary to harvest fish. One greedy postor who refused to share benefits found out the hard way. People did not help sell or dry the barangen in the next fish run, so much so that the catch ended up as foul, rotting piles of fish strewn along the village and thus had to be buried. People were aware they possessed some power. They warned that any postor who was unwilling to share fish would have to contend with vindictive measures to retaliate selfish behavior, destroying the pasabing or cheating the postor. Complex sharing mechanisms among those involved are discussed thoroughly in the original publication. Few examples were how investors raised the concession fee for prorated returns in a sure venture. Fishers who set up their fish traps in contiguous spaces pooled the catch so they could equally divide the catch to avoid conflicts. Buyers queued without cutting the line to obtain just enough fish so those waiting at the end of the line had something to buy. Fish workers and fresh traders likewise had systems of helping each other with tasks and splitting earnings according to their sense of fairness. In sum, those who benefited the most from the Barangen concession system went to the socially, politically, and economically advantaged. Inequity cannot be ignored as it is easily seen between a dried fisher trader who earned substantially more than the dried fish processor, or the bantay who earned way less than a postor. Yet, one could also not ignore the complex sharing arrangements among the participants to the concession. Sharing of fish was encouraged, demanded even, and this socially tempered individualism within the group of resource users. This to them were aligned with a sense of fairness, especially if it afforded access to fish with other exchanges beyond the Barangen fishing season. Social distancing as a form of social exclusion. Social distancing versus physical distancing. The World Health Organizations repeatedly emphasize social distancing in order to prevent the further spread of COVID-19. Broadly defined, social distancing is understood as maintaining a distance of at least a meter for individuals in a social interaction. Professor Filomene Gutierrez of the UP Diliman's Department of Sociology quickly questioned the use of social distancing. She elaborated that in social sciences, social distance determines the strength and depth of inclusion, family, engagement, and trust in a community. Social distance also implies the perceived distinction between one's and other people's identities, unfamiliarity with others, and even the degree of closeness with others. For many, social distancing may appear as a very neutral term, but social distance is also illustrative of asymmetric power relations, access to resources, and willingness to accept and interact with a stigmatized group. Thus, maintaining social distance in human interactions can potentially exacerbate existing prejudices and discrimination. More importantly, the sense of dissimilarity felt by high power individuals may result in further loss of empathy on the plight of low power individuals. Not surprisingly, during the March 2020 briefing of the World Health Organization, Dr. Maria Van Kerkhove emphasized the need to shift from social distancing to physical distancing to stop people from transmitting the COVID-19 virus from one another. Kerkhove further emphasized that they want family and friends to remain socially connected through technology in this time of crisis. Closer to home, Professor Gutierrez recommended the use of the term interpersonal physical distancing. While the World Health Organization started to veer away from social distancing to the more appropriate term of physical distancing, the emerging management of this health emergency is replete with illustrations of unevenness in accessing basic resources and powerlessness of the most vulnerable groups to weather the situation. Admittedly, the social protection program coverage of the Philippines has improved in the last few years. However, people who work in the informal sector still lack adequate protection and inclusion in risk insurance schemes. There is also the absence of social safety nets for the daily wage earners who are barred from going to their places of work due to the expanded community quarantine. These economic shocks have dire consequences on the most vulnerable groups, including the children and the older members of the households who need adequate nutrition to ward off the possible attack of the COVID-19 virus. For these groups, the sense of isolation is not only social, but also economic as well. What the numbers are telling us, how dire is the situation. Illustrative is the case of one city in Metro Manila where disadvantaged households needed to make adjustments to respond to economic disruptions. Based on the survey conducted by the Ateneo de Manila University's Community Welfare, Wellness, and Wellbeing Laboratory, CW3, in September 2018, the majority, 63.14% of these households, were already struggling with various degrees of food insecurity, with a quarter, 24.68%, classified as severely food insecure. After the onset of high food price inflation in 2018, between February and September, food insecurity increased from 63.14% to 75.97%, which means that the majority of the households lack consistent access to enough nutritious and healthy food. While many are able to work from home during the ECQ period, not everyone has that same option. The vulnerability of these daily wage earners is very glaring in these difficult times. They do not get any income when they do not shop for work. And together with workers in the informal economy, they find themselves, and to a certain extent, their respective families, with no source of income. Thus, the impact of ECQ on food insecurity is expected to be much worse compared with the 2018 high food price inflation. In the sampled households, 64% have at least one member who is a daily wage earner, which translates into 2,638 pesos and 31 cents loss in the weekly income. For 14% of the households with two daily wage earners, the estimated loss in weekly income is double at 5,276 pesos and 62 cents. There is also the 23% of the households with at least one member in elementary occupation or an informal worker. For this group, the weekly income loss is about 1,572.43 cents. By all indications, this pattern is repeated many times in other cities and municipalities in the country. The plight of the most vulnerable groups is further exacerbated by the difficulty of maintaining physical distancing in crowded areas where many of them reside. In 2016, the UN estimated that around 43.5% of the urban population in the Philippines are residing in slums, characterized by overcrowding with poor ventilation. Meanwhile, there are about 4 physicians per 1,000 population, and for the most vulnerable groups, health insurance provided by the government remains very low. For example, only 8% of informal workers and 6% of senior citizens in the country have PhilHealth coverage. While there are compelling reasons to practice physical distancing to abate the spread of COVID-19, the vulnerabilities currently experienced by a significant portion of our population is very much illustrative of social distancing by virtue of their lack of access to the much-needed health and economic resource. Social connectedness in the time of COVID-19. Now more than ever, as everyone is reeling from the COVID-19 pandemic, there is a need to foster a greater sense of connectedness, though not of the physical kind. Through technology and the power of the internet, there are different modalities to maintain a strong link with the outside world despite the imposed physical isolation needed to curb the spread of COVID-19. There is much comfort in knowing that one can tap their existing network of friends and family for mutual trust and support. As a final solution appears to be still a long way off, the same level of mutual trust and support should ideally also extend to the representatives of both local and national governments. At this point, the people do not need further threats to exacerbate the fear and insecurities that they can barely manage. What they actually need is the reassurance that someone is looking after their well-being. Such is a fail-safe way to soften the social and economic isolation currently being experienced by the most vulnerable groups in the country. In short, there is a need for a leadership with a high degree of empathic accuracy and understanding, and at the same time capable of responding well to the plight of the people, most especially the least protected ones. The charming eyes and the labors of sales work. It is challenging to assist customers when one is not fixed or wearing makeup. You want to go on your break to have the time to put on cosmetics and makeup instead of a jolly greeting. Yes, ma'am, what are you looking for? We have a new stock of that item. What color? What size? There is no aggressiveness. When unfixed, unkept, and without proper makeup, one can only muster a dry, bored, and lifeless, yes, ma'am. One will not have the confidence to sales stock. Ara, Personal Interview, 2014. Beauty and makeup are constitutive of gender displays that ease sales work. With makeup, the face transforms, becoming more attractive. This contributes to capturing attention and engaging customers in the sales process. When one is without makeup, the sales ladies feel incomplete and unprepared to do the job. They fail to be aggressive in their sales pitch when unarmed by beauty. As expressed by Ara, the 23-year-old informant, the unkept and improper application of makeup make their service dull and lifeless. Sales ladies see this connection between the gender displays of makeup and the practical concerns on the shop floor. The technicalities of beauty and makeup are complex. These depend on the products, the tools, and the application process. Products are varied. For example, foundation is available in liquid and cake form. Liquid foundation can come in a tube, pump container, or small bottle. It can be applied using the fingers, a sponge, or brush. Cake foundation can be the two-way type, which means that it can either be applied using a dry sponge or using a wet sponge, in mimicking the effect of liquid coverage. Similarly, the blush-on, eyeliner, eyebrow pencil, and lip products come in various color palettes, formats, materials, price points, and brands. The tools are usually numerous brushes and sponges, whereas the application process involves skills, strokes, and blending techniques for face application. These are combined in various ways to achieve a particular look or effect. During the interviews, the importance of charming eyes emerges as informants talk extensively on how the specific makeup practices for the eye zone overlap with the meanings of social interaction in the selling area. First, informants express how each part of the eye zone, eyebrows, eyelashes, lash lines, and the lids, is worked carefully to make it attractive. The eye zone should look inviting to draw customers to the section, hence, the charming eyes. Second, the discussion moves back and forth between the overall and specific impacts of makeup. Several local notions about work emerge in this elaboration. These two illustrate how the social and technical blend into the micro practices of the face, which impact the customers. Sales ladies describe this impact in terms of work disposition and influence. Work disposition refers to one's attitude about work, loosely translated in Tagalog as pagdadala ng sarili sa trabaho, as well as one's bearing and behavior toward customers and workmates. Overall, pagdadala ng sarili sa trabaho manifests in the presentation of the self at work. Most informants describe behavior as buhay na buhay, full of life, to suggest good spirits and a sense of excitement when attending to customers and their needs. Without these positive traits, one gets the label patay, lifeless, walang buhay, lackluster, antukin, sleepy, and matamlay, lacking energy. The lack of buhay or life suggests the absence of vitality to work. Buhay is the general disposition of liveliness in the selling area, which is necessary for pleasing customers. Of the different zones of the face, charming eyes have the most association with buhay because it mostly exhibits liveliness. Thus, according to Eunice, who worked as a sales lady in her early 20s, the eye zone should be given intense attention or pinapaganda talaga, you really make it beautiful. With makeup and the transformation it provides, the eyes are nakakaakit kahit antok. Looks attractive even when you are sleepy. Antok, sleepiness relates to tamlay, low energy. Jessa stress how they do not want to give an impression of being matamlay by coming to work without the proper makeup. In the same vein, makeup helps cover up the tired, overworked look from staying up late. On one occasion, one of the sales ladies was patting an extra layer of powder under her eyes to conceal signs of puyat, staying up late. Makeup also conceals the traces of fatigue from work or a social life. The goal is to look fixed and ready to face work. These charming eyes are created through a focalized use of makeup on the eyebrows and the eyelashes. The eyebrows or kilay need to be well shaped, trimmed, and groomed. Plucking, threading, or shaving using a brow razor removes scattered brow hair to create its manicured state. Further shaping and contouring are achieved through eyebrow makeup. The product outlines and fills up the spaces to achieve the desired shape. Several brushes are needed to properly blend the products for a natural look. The kilay is enough to look made up. Xenia and Ara agreed that basta maganda ang kilay, maayos na. With well-groomed eyebrows, you are all set. Even sans the eyeshadow. Additionally, the shape and color of the eyebrow makeup enhance approachability. Brown is the preferred color for sketching and enhancing the eyebrows. Reggie explains, pag kilay, dapat brown eyebrow pencil ang gamitin. Pag black eyebrow pencil kasi ang ginamit, matapang at masungit ang dating. Hindi ka lalapitan ng customer pag ganun. One should use a brown eyebrow pencil for contouring. Black eyebrow pencil will make you look unfriendly and standoffish. No customers will approach you. To be approachable or madaling lapitan is to appear friendly and helpful to customers. The charming eyes are further highlighted through the lash lines and eyelashes. Outlining the lash lines using eyeliner or a liquid eye make it appear bigger and more prominent. Extending the lash lines and putting a tail at the corner near the temple further enhances the eyes. The lashes are curled and the mascara is applied to make the eyes pop. Nakakapagpabuka ng mata. For extra flair, certain types of mascara can give eyelashes a curled, fanned, lengthened, or thickened effect. This lengthened or thickened effect is achieved through using the Salesladies staple Super Shock and Super Extend Extreme Mascara, which are variants of the makeup brand Avon. Accentuating the lash lines and lashes enhance the profiles of the eyes. Charming customers come with a retail sales work. For a worker to be competent, the body, in this case, the face or parts of it like the charming eyes, needs to be maayos or fixed for work. They labor over eye makeup to overcome the discomfort of looking at a stranger and suppress the customer's instinct to look away. It is in the best interest of the sales lady if, number one, from a distance, she is admitted into the prospect's field of attention, and number two, she uses her charming eyes to hook the customer and convey expressions of welcome. There are only a few seconds to hold their gaze, send signals of invitation, convince them to approach, and buy what she is offering. Meeting sales quotas and targets can be hard to deliver without the arsenal of selling skills acquired during training. However, the initial stage of capturing customer attention centers on the face that often begins with the gaze, specifically of the charming eyes. Outside of the appearance rules and beauty standards, sales ladies deliberately use their looks, appearance, and attractiveness beyond meeting sales targets. These qualities dissipate the various anxieties of work. It lessens the burden of customer interaction and helps in performing duties that accomplish the sales quota, which the sales ladies equate with their gains.